Hello, hello, my beautiful soul sisters. Okay, so maybe you listened to last week's podcast on being unshakable and learning how to shift your energy, to shift the way that you're feeling, to change your emotional state, to help rewire that body language, and to do something in your body. Maybe you're feeling like, get those times where I'm just feeling like this heavy energy, but today is not one of those days. Today I'm feeling uplifted, and I'm going to share how we can change our relationship with rejection, with failure and fear. So please, my beautiful soul sisters, keep listening and share this. I love you. Head over to Awaken You with Shelly Bond on iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and a review. It means the universe to me. I love you. I'm so pumped about today's pod. Hi, I'm Shelly. Welcome to my show. One of my many roles is a mama, a wife, a house manager, a yoga teacher, an intuitive healer, a spiritual practitioner, and a writer. As many of us can resonate with, we wear so many hats throughout the day. On this podcast, here is the space I've created for women to help us grow and help us to awaken to what really matters, to tune into ourselves, flaws and all, to embrace that healing is a journey. It is not the end point. I'm here to hold space, to share my ugly truths in hopes to invite you to awaken to yours. I want you to know that you are not alone. I am right here walking this path with you. How many times have you failed at something and then you transmuted that you're a failure, that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough, so just don't even do it again? How many of you? Raise your hand. How many times have you been rejected and then you transmuted that deep, deep, deep at the core of who you were, and you told yourself, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. They rejected me again. I must not be good enough. I can't do this. And then you just let it stop you. Raise your hand. How many of us are raising our hands? I was so inspired. This is a spinoff on our podcast that we talked about, The Unshakable, when I heard this beautiful story of this woman. Her name is Jamie. I'm not sure her last name. She's the creator, the founder of It Cosmetics. I didn't even know her story, honestly, at all. And she's this beautiful woman, just like an average, like, curvy woman, and she had rosacea, just like really bumpy skin, and she actually did make it to be a news anchor. And she said her big moment was she was on the air and she went to wipe her eyebrows and one of her eyebrows came off, so she's like on the air live with one eyebrow on, and she was like, I can't figure out why makeup never works for me. I can't find a makeup that works for me, that my skin doesn't look red and bumpy. I can't figure it out. And then what she realized was that she needed to make her own makeup product, that she needed to create something that no one had ever created before. And with this inspiration, she took action and she actually created her own freaking makeup line. And she had so much rejection. She had so many people just say like horribly rude things to her. And for me, it was like this huge story that she shared on the Unshakable event is she comes on the stage and she's like, it just like wasn't working, and people just kept telling me no, and they kept saying no, that no, and it was like no, and then she's like, okay, no, I'm going again, like pick me up, dust me up, no, no, okay, who's the next person, no, okay, I'm gonna go again, and it gives me goosebumps everywhere, like no. And finally she's like gets this like meeting with someone who's going to be investor, because she's like in her living room and doing all of her products, and she's like almost out of money, almost going, I think she said bankruptcy, like she has no money left. And she has this huge meeting and she's like, finally, universe, I know it's here. This is it. This is the time. This investor is going to help me out. And she gets there. She does her whole spiel. She's like feeling so good. She's like, I know he's going to say yes. It's a yes. It's a yes. It's a yes. And he's just nonchalantly, just with confidence, he's like, thank you for all of this, but it's going to be a no. And she was like, a no? A no? Like, why no? Why no? He's like, it's going to be a no. She's like, but why? He goes, do you want to know? And she said, yes. Jamie says, yes, I want to know. And he goes, you really want to know the truth? And she's like, yes, I want to know the truth. Tell me the truth. And he goes, well, it's because of your body, because of the size of your body, because she's a little bit of a heavier woman. It's the size of your body. I don't think women are going to buy makeup from like a heavier set woman, pretty much is what he's saying. And she just said she got this stabbing in the pit of her gut. She just like thwarted. And then she just said, but deep resonantly below, like inside of her, deep within her, she thought, you're wrong. No, like you're wrong. You're freaking wrong. But she walked away that day and she was thwarted, but she decided that she had to change her relationship with rejection and with failure, because we have to change our relationship. Because when we allow that one experience to take us down, if she never did that, like she ended up years later selling her beautiful brand to L'Oreal for 1.2 or 1.3 billion, not million, billion dollars. And she said, this was so funny. It gave me like crazy goosebumps, that after she got that contract with L'Oreal and like sold her brand and is now working with them and marketing and just this like on top of her life, on top of her world, just this beautiful, bright, shining energy, and somehow got in cahoots with that guy again. And she was like, I wanted to be like on Pretty Woman, how Pretty Woman comes back with all the money and all the clothes and walks in with her arms out and is like, big mistake. Big mistake. But she's like, you know what? I chose not to. Like, I chose to be like, no, because that rejection was the universe's way, or God's way, whatever resonates with you, of protecting me and keeping me true to my path. Because if that investor came in, he would have changed everything about her makeup. He would have changed how she marketed it. He would have changed the look of it. He would have changed everything. And it wouldn't have been the same product that it was today. And that this beautiful soul, what she enlightened us on is that we have to really first become aware, what is our relationship and what is our thoughts behind rejection, behind failure. And that brings up fear on its own. It's like that fear of, I know for most women, not speaking for every woman, but I know that 90% of us, because we don't feel like we are good enough. We don't feel like we're smart enough. We don't feel like we're the right age, right size, maybe even right gender, maybe right body type. Maybe it's that we're not even living in the right ages. We feel like an old soul and we're like, why am I here? I can't be here. I can't get along with these people my age. Like, what's happening? And so it's we learned from Tony Robbins, who Tony was also one of this beautiful woman, Jamie's mentors, that he taught us. He's teaching us how to become aware of our programming. And the way that we are programmed is the way that we grew up, most likely from our parents, right? Those people around us. And sometimes even, depending on what you believe, it can be a past life programming. That's from me, not from Tony. And so our programming is what determines, right? But before that, even, it's our story. So what is the story that we're telling ourselves? So an example is, think of a car accident. A car accident happens and 5 different people see the car accident. A police officer goes and interviews all 5 of the people, and there's 5 different perspectives, because everyone has a different story. Like, oh my gosh, this guy hit her. It was blah, blah, it was this and that. And we all have our own perspective and we all have our own story. And that's why, even growing up one of 5 girls, I bet you could ask me about an experience and you could ask my sisters, and we would all come up with a different story. It'd be a different perspective. It would probably, maybe even I would say summer, they would say fall. And our story is what we live on. So the story of being rejected, I think of being rejected for books. I think of feeling this like resident rejection, even for something as silly as not getting enough subscribers on YouTube. It's like that feeling of like, oh, I'm rejected, I'm failing, that I need to just stop. But the thing is that we underestimate ourselves and the power of persistence and the power of perseverance and keeping to show up. And I've been talking about that. I've been reading this book, The Power of One More. Like, Ed Milet is another super high performer, businessman, entrepreneur, amazing financial guy that is telling us that like there is this power in just keeping going and keep persevering. Because if you just stop, like if I just stopped when they rejected my books for like the 75th, 80th, 90th time, I wouldn't have written and published my book, Awaken You, From Pain to Healing, A Woman's Way of Waking Up to Her Life. And if I didn't publish that book, I probably wouldn't be here podcasting with you. And then I probably wouldn't have created my healing center and all these probablys, because I wouldn't have had that momentum and that drive to just keep going and keep persevering. And at the time, I didn't have this new relationship, this which I'm still working at, and I'm like integrating this into myself because it's an integration, and it's something though that can happen fast. And it's this noticing. And another beautiful thing that the soul Jamie taught us was, so change your story, change your wiring, right? Your perspective around when rejection comes, when failure comes. Another example is like, think of maybe there's some single people out there, and some single people are like, oh, all the good ones are taken. Like, there's no one out there for me. All the dating sites are like, there's no one out there for me. Well, is that the story that you're telling yourself? Or maybe are you just not looking in the right places, because maybe being online is not the best place to meet someone. Or maybe it is. I know actually two couples I can say that are married, one couple that's been married for like 13 years who met online, and another couple who just got married. And so it's like, what is your story? What is your narrative behind your relationship? And so for me, this was this huge like wake up call for my relationship with my husband, because my old story is that it's painful to be in a relationship with him. And even deeper down is that there's this like, was this underlying feel of abandonment, that my dad left when I was 8, and then we didn't see him for like 7 years, and that men are not a safe space to be around. And deep at a subconscious level, that sad story would play out, and still sometimes does. And in moments where I react or in like in a way that I'm not proud of necessarily, that I have to realize like, oh, like he's not rejecting me. He's not abandoning me. He's like, that is an old story. My new story that I write with my husband is that he's always here for me. He's always supporting me. He's always loving me. And together we thrive, we strive, we connect, we have soul connecting sex. And guess what? I was actually sharing with last week's podcast about Rex and I like banging it out and doing the the basement, and just like working so hard after being in such hard fights and just not connecting. And then just that night we were laying in bed, and it was like late. Like, I don't go to bed this late ever, but it was like midnight, and he kept like rubbing my body. And then we just had like the best sex ever after like a month, like no sex dry spell. And then just like so connected, like the best orgasm of my entire life that lasted for like 2 minutes. And like, I just felt so loved and so supported and so taken care of, because I really noticed, I started noticing that old story, that old programming, and I'm rewiring it, because he's not rejecting me. I'm not a failure as a wife when I F up and I act in ways that I'm not proud of. I shift it. And I know that forgiveness is always available, because inevitably as humans, we're always going to have those experiences where maybe we get angry or frustrated, or we let one of our human aspects take us over. And that is part of being freaking human. That doesn't equal that you are a failure, okay? We have to rewrite the narrative behind being a failure. And I even wrote in my book, which it's even shifted more today, about we've got to let the F bomb go, failure, not the F word. Even though like the F failure almost is like as bad to me as the F word. It's like, okay, which I'm really trying to watch my wording and my vibrations behind things, because there is such this power. And I do sometimes let the F bombs fly, and in this podcast sometimes, but I'm being very mindful of the words and the energy and the vibration that I'm putting out. And so I really just implore you, my beautiful soul sisters, that just notice when those experiences and those triggers come up. If it's with your spouse, usually it's those people who are the closest to us. Because are you allowing yourself to like put yourself out there? Have you written a book? Have you let someone read it? I remember the first time I let someone read my book, it was my beautiful soul sister, Chelsea. I think she was the second one. No, she was the second one, because the first person I let read my book, it was called Spiritual Birth, and it was one of my clients. And she was like, but your book is just like all about the same thing. But I don't get it. But then she said, but I guess all books are about one thing, right? But then I rewrote it a ton. But I remember sending the document over to my soul sister, and I was so terrified to have her read my book, like sweaty and just like so nervous. And then even after I edited my book, and it was actually, was it after? I can't remember. Was it before or after? I hired a professional editor, Gina Castillo, I think it was, with Killing It Right. And she did an amazing, phenomenal job. And she really just like pushed me out of my box and really just expanded my perception of structure and organization when it comes to writing a book, because I have a tendency to get off topic. Maybe you've heard that. And blah, 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 blah. And so she really forced me and really had me hone in and focus on what it was that I was talking about so I could get my message through. And that was just like, that was powerful. And there was so much growth there. But I let another one of my soul sisters, who was first one of my clients, I printed off my book. And it was like, it took me like an hour to print it off. Like I was like, oh, it'll take like 10 or 15 minutes. It took like, for 300 pages, it took an hour, because the printer was like, it was like printing, and then it would stop. And then you had to, and then it would like suck it back in, and then it would print, and then it would have to dry. And it was like a stack. It was so thick, like 300 pages, and I didn't have binding, and I like gave it to her like that. And I'm thinking now, oh no, I did. I actually hole punched it. Nope. I hole punched it and I put it in a binder for her. I remember this. Again, that fear flooded my system. However, some part of me was like, it's okay. She's not judging you. She loves you. And all I wanted was her feedback. I wanted her to tell me what she thought about it. And again, I shared with so many different people, and I wanted to hear people's perspective, and I wanted to hear what they were hearing and their perspective, because again, our stories are so different. I'm sure someone read my book and they can give you a different story than I do. And that is just how life is. But each time that I pressed myself to do something scary that was hard, it made me stronger. Inevitably, my beautiful soul sisters, everything that's hard is going to be what is actually worthwhile. Everything hard is what brings those breakthrough growth moments, that we have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, because guess what? Nothing is happening inside of this safety box, this comfort zone of doing the same thing every day. And that's why it's so important to have that morning practice. I say it all of the time. And did you do that morning practice, that morning positive energy? I'm going to call it the morning positive energy practice. I vibrate with that more. I resonate with that way more than the priming practice. But it's like with anything, we turn it into what we need it to be. We transmute it, we morph it into what it is that we need to. And it's so important that we create this sacred space, this energy within us, and then we move through it. So how often did you really move your body and elevate your energy? Did you do it? Did you forget about it? Do it with me now. Shake your arms, even if you're in a chair. Elevate your energy, raise your arms up, maybe clap your hands. Do something that brings a sense of excitement, because as I'm sitting here in this like hard chair in my bedroom. In the window, it's beautiful. It's like cold snow, and it's like peaceful. And I love peaceful energy. For me though, I don't really get anything accomplished when I'm in this like kind of like peaceful energy. So I know now with this newfound knowledge, this seed planted within me that's like sprouting and blossoming out, that I need to move my body to create momentum and to do things in my life. And maybe, is there something that you could do that could put you in that state of maybe having a future rejection? Like, oh, you think of Shelly, why would I ever want to do that? That sounds terrible. Why would I ever want to get rejected? Well, I just keep thinking of books and writing books, or maybe it's you're a singer or a songwriter, or maybe it's like trying to ask for a raise. Like my sister was just saying, this is so cool. She works for 2 different companies, one being my husband. She's like, I've gotten 2 raises this year because she just put herself out there and she asked. If she didn't ask, she wouldn't have increased her income by like $10,000 a year. But because she asked and she's put in the time and worked hard, she put herself out there. And guess what? One of them could have said no. They both could have said no. And then she maybe would be in a different boat if she didn't allow that to be. Sometimes I feel like, too, I'm like cutting my own self off. Rejection comes to us as a gift. And as Deepak Chopra said a long time ago, this is like stuck with me for many years, is that for every experience, there's a grievance or a miracle. And most of the time we're programmed, our story tells us that we need to find the grievance. But what if every experience really was a miracle? And even if it was a painful miracle or a breakthrough miracle, or there was that big rejection, that big fear that kept coming up, fear, fear, fear. What if there was still that freaking fear? And then you went anyways. You took the step anyways. You fill out the resume anyways. You plunged and you decided to start your own business. You just started writing. And another really powerful thing that I took away from that unshakable event, which I am super stoked because in March, I think it's 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, I'm doing the full deep dive, the Unleash the Power Within. They call it like UTW, Unleash the Power Within. And just like hearing all of the stories, I'm doing it with my sister. And again, it's really scary for me. I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, that's scary. These people are above and beyond me. And I'm like, no, I'm one with these people. Like, I cannot tell you like the excitement and the energy and the elevation. I was like craving it every day. The like workshop or challenge was Tuesday through Saturday. And it was only supposed to be noon to 2, but one day ran till 4. And I was like craving it every moment. And actually, Tony decided to do one more live today, and he was recording it, and I'll just like catch that second thing. But it's a noticing. Excuse me. Notice when you're feeling lit up and who's around you and what it is. Why is it that you feel lit up? And then invest in you. Take the time to better you, to become a more vibrantly alive or peaceful or calm or grounded or emotionally intact human, because we have to change things in our lives in order for them to change. I remember when I first started meditating and becoming spiritual, that I thought that my life's journey was going to be like all of my questions were going to be answered, and I was going to just like meditate my way into manifesting everything that I wanted. And I still yes, I am like a huge believer. I know that I manifest things, and so do you. We all do. Everything is like karmic and it's always coming. How we extremely manifest is when we bring what we want into our emotional state and we see it as if it's already here. And that's like been a big piece where I'm like, like tying that together. And so I know that I can't do it all alone. And that used to be a lie. And that used to be something that I'd get really thwarted on, is like, I have to always do everything alone. I'm on my own. Like, I've got this. And maybe I had the help from my sisters, but that was just another lie, because we were not put on this planet to be alone and to do everything alone. That we need this web, this connection of people. And there's nothing more beautiful than like this group of people who just like collaborates and gets together. This event was so amazing because Tony created this. And I'm like, Tony. I feel like Rex is like, if you say Tony Robbins one more time, I'm going to freak out. I'm just feeling like, But he created this online space, and like, it was so cool. It was the last day, I think, or second to last day. There was this woman, and I think she was in a hurricane, and she had like lost her house. She had lost everything. They had like evacuated her city, and she was like supposed to go somewhere, and it fell through, and she was homeless, and she had like no money. I think like $18 or something really low like that. And she had a son, and she was like, we were like under a bridge homeless, but my son was seeing like the magic and the beauty, and he was like talking to dolphins and manatees and seeing the magic around him. And this beautiful woman just reached out, like, not because she wanted people's pity or anything, just like, this is my experience, but I'm still here showing up because I know that this came into my life for a reason. And then someone connected with someone, and someone connected with someone, and they got her a hotel for 3 nights. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. And then Tony Robbins and his crew got her another hotel for 3 nights. And then he brought her on the air. And it was just like so beautiful, like her sharing her story and like about her son. And then just like the amazingness of community, and like when people come together, like the innate need to help each other, that no matter what people's circumstances are, that we can always help each other, that we're not alone. And then he said, because of all of this and because of this community, we're going to give you $10,000 to get on your feet, to find a house or an apartment to live in, and to get food and to get a job. And she was saying, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. And it was just like this beautiful moment of giving, of like giving to someone who had like nothing. She felt like she had nothing and she had nothing to lose, but she didn't know that she had anything to gain, and she gained so much because she didn't just gain the money and the security of getting a place to stay and food to eat, but she just also gained all this support, this emotional support and this love. And in our lives, I know that sometimes I separate myself from other people because I do kind of get that overwhelm of energy, and I'm like, I like to be alone. I am this empath, but I'm a very rooted. I'm an empath alchemist, so I shift this energy and I choose not to live in that. But sometimes I do. I'm like, but when I get in these spaces, or like when I do retreats with women or go to a retreat or a yoga class, I feel so lit up and so connected. And those are the feelings, like those are some of those feelings that we need to listen to and to pay attention to. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be okay. Like my kids went to this night at the rec on Friday night, and they were gone in the nighttime, and my house was just like calm and peaceful. And Rex and I like got Thai food takeout, and we were gonna like watch a movie, and then I just literally fell asleep and took a nap on the couch because it was like quiet and I was tired, and it was so magical. And Rex was like pooping for an hour because that's what he does, and scrolling through his phone, which that's his jam. But that was wonderful too. And so, really, my beautiful soul sisters, is just paying attention to those moments when you need that space, that break to rejuvenate, to recharge your energy. And noticing when you are in those spaces of feeling just like electrified, or even maybe listening to this, does this inspire you? Do I motivate you to do something? What is it that you can do, or who can you share this with to connect yourself, to put yourself out there, to better the human that you are? Because we can love ourselves and be grateful for ourselves for who we are today, and still work on being better for tomorrow, and being better for our children, and better for our spouses, and better for this planet. And coming back to our topic of really noticing those experiences in our lives. And it's not saying that we're getting like so caught up in the past, because I I do believe that we need to find peace with our past. However, like Eckhart Tolle shared, I really resonate with this, is that we have to heal from our past to be present in the future. And when a lot of times we get so stuck up, like, so maybe we got rejected once. Maybe I think of even like when I was younger, I was like boy crazy, and I like asked my crush out like in front of all these friends, and we were like dating. And the very next day he was like this boy, his name is Rudy Hall, and he's still a human now, and he was like this beautiful tall blonde artist, and I always had the hugest crush on him. Like I always was like, oh, I love him. And I wanted to be so badly with him, and we were together finally, and I was like, oh my gosh, my dreams have come true. And he gives me a letter the very next day, and he was like, Michelle, this was my name back then, like literally in this like beautiful, like, what is it called, calligraphy, like he had like drawn like a border and like a picture of a pen writing, and it was like, dear Michelle. And it was just like, I just wanted to say, with all of the friends around, I felt really pressured into being your boyfriend, but I really do, like, he said it in such a nice way. It was like a nice guy way. And he was like, I felt so pressured by it, and it wasn't anything that I really wanted. And so I want to break up with you. And then he was like, if you need to, you can call me. And then of course I was like, oh my God, just starting sobbing. And in that moment, it was this moment that my inner child, I was probably like 12, or maybe Junie's age, like 13, was like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough to have what it is that I want, or to have love, or I'm not worthy of being loved by someone that I love so much. And at that time I thought I loved him so much, but it was like that, like infatuation. I was so enamored with him. And I remember calling him, and I just sobbed, and it was probably like mortifying, but I just needed to do that. And I was like, why? But I don't understand. And he was like, it was all of the friends around, they pressured me. Like we were standing this group of friends, and they were like, oh, you're both tall, oh, you're both blonde, you make such a good couple, you guys should really be a couple, you guys should go out, do you guys want to go out? And I was like, yeah, I want to go out. Do you want to go out, Rudy? And he was like, yeah. And he was like taller than me. I was always like the tallest, like 5'8", 5'9" in middle school. huge feet. And it was like, and I remember like I reached down and we held each other's hands and I was like on top of the world. But in a day, that rejection, that, oh my gosh, I failed, I'm not worthy of love, like flooded through my system. And it's funny because then I didn't notice, but that carried along with me. And that was my story that I created, was that I needed this guy to fill me up and to make me feel good. And then I held that story and I really never had a boyfriend. I never had a boyfriend through middle school. And I think maybe it was like the end of the senior year, I actually got into a really bad, I was in love once again with a boy who was actually, we were going to raves and we were in a really bad space, and he was actually a drug dealer. And I got into that yucky game of ecstasy, and I wasn't quite doing cocaine yet, but I got in this really dark space. And then I started like stealing from people, and I just became this like really low vibrational, yucky version of myself because I said, my story, my programming is that I wasn't worthy of love. I wasn't worthy of being in a supporting relationship. And so it makes so much sense. Like all of my relationships, or the story that I played, and that failure and that rejection that I just carried with me from year to year to year to year until I just feel like it's like we have to like get to this breaking point where we're like, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore because I'm going to keep attracting this crappy energy into my life. There's something I have to do. There's something I have to freaking do to change this. And it relies within us. We can't look for other people to do it. We can't look for clothes to do it, or shoes, or handbags, or money, or cats, or dogs, or vacations to change our old programming and our old story. That it has to start within us, that we have to, at the core of who we are, know and rewrite our narrative, that experience, that rejection, was the universe's way of keeping me on my divine path. Because who knows, if I was in that relationship and he just stayed with me and stayed with me, who knows, like I could have ended up being like a teen mom because I was like so in love with, like, who knows, the story. That story could be written like a million different ways. And then I could have been in this relationship with this person who kind of liked me but really wasn't in love with me, and but that wasn't my story. And so right now what I'm really getting at is maybe coming up with a mantra, as that beautiful Jamie taught us, that I learned from It Cosmetics. You can look up her story. She is like a phenomenal, amazing, just like her smile is like infectious, and just her energy, and oh, just like I want to be around her and I want to hug her and have tea with her and like pick her brain and all of the things. And that's another reason why I signed up for this bigger event, because I'm like, I need more of you. And I also, it was so interesting too, I kept hearing about Sage Robbins and Tony's wife, and then I heard that they had a baby, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's 62. I think she's 11 years older than me, 39, 49. So she's 50. She had a baby almost 2 years ago, like, because they were like, COVID just Tony was like, blessed me with the ability to be home, and we decided to have another baby. And there was something about when Sage got on the stage, no pun intended, it was like in Tony's basement. I just connected with her energy so much and was like, oh my gosh, I need more of this woman. I can't just stop here. Like, she was only on like one of the days for like maybe 2 hours, and just like her calm, gentle energy. And she was wearing like a Rude Raksha bracelet, and just like the expectations were like, oh my gosh, you're married to Tony Robbins. You're like a multi-millionaire. Maybe they're even billionaires. I'm not sure. But I was like, I had this really crazy, like, she's going to be like this way, but she was just this beautiful presence. And what this just shows me is that successful, amazing women are still supportive. They're still kind. They're still giving. They're still open. And that's the type of woman that I strive to be, that I know I am, I am that. And that it's that I strive to be like these women, yet I already am like these women. And it's something that I just feel so called to just like keep following in the footsteps, or keep myself surrounded by the people that are doing the things that I want to do. So it would be so amazing to work with Tony Robbins and his wife and do all those things. But it's so funny because it's such a different energy from like the yoga community and the oming and the sitting. And I feel like there's this very specific reason, because I just finished my yoga teacher training, and I'm now a 500-hour yoga teacher. Woo woo! celebrate, doing the things. And now I'm just like, now I've got a deep dive within myself. Like there's something within me that is blocking me that I need to like get out of my way. Do you feel like that sometimes? It's you, it's me, it's us. We're getting in our own way. That old story, that old programming. And honestly, like just this little bit of this training was like such this huge epiphany and awakening that I'm like, I need this. I need help because I can't do this all alone. And like he was saying, Tony was saying, like, you could probably do this all alone. It would probably take you like 30 or 40 years, or you could just like deep dive, fully emerge, submerge or emerge. Both words work great there. Yourself in this moment and just full on like commit and do all of the things and freaking radically transform your life. And that is what I'm feeling like. I have been craving something, but I haven't been knowing what it is. And this was another thing that was so amazing that was just like a light bulb or maybe a sparkle or a firecracker going off. It's like we don't always have to know the how, is that we can have these dreams and these visions, and we don't have to get so stuck up in the physical realm, because I don't know if you're anything like me, like I've always been a really big dreamer. My brain is, I am an open channel of ideas. Like ideas come, and my husband even is one of them. He's like, get your head out of the clouds. Like I wrote a whole children's picture book called Robot Ryby. And there's this one part, because I feel like this was me as Robot Ryby, where the others, the mean robots, are like, get your head out of the clouds and back on this planet, because this robot wants to be a superhero. But in the storyline, you're a robot. You're not a superhero. You can't be both. You can't be a robot and a superhero. But no, yes, you can. And the whole moral of this beautiful story that I wrote was like that this robot, Ryby, who wanted to be a superhero, he gets a cape. He gets his like eye cover, and he just starts doing good things. Like he saves a creature out of a tree. He picks up a park, and he just feels good. And then all of a sudden, this like flaming hot meteor is hurtling at the earth, and the others are just standing there like, ah. And Robot Ryby takes action, and he pounds that flaming rock out of the atmosphere. Be true to who you are and follow your heart, even if you don't know. And if you can be yourself, then inevitably others will follow. And in the end of the book, the others actually have superhero capes on, and they're like, we want to be just like you. Even just rehashing that book makes me tear up, because that robot is me. That robot is you. Is that people can tell us anything, and most of the time it's ourselves telling us this old story, where we're just playing this old sad story over and over, and it's no longer serving us. It's served us this far, but it's time to shift, to change, to transform that story, and it's time to do something for you. And that is why I'm here, my beautiful soul sisters, because I believe that with the power of our own intention, our own self, our own soul, our own willpower within us, that we can change and transform whatever it is that we want in our lives. And that is maybe even your health, your body. Maybe, I know that for many years after I had Junie and Milo, I just felt really bad about my body. I had, the mommy belly and the stretch marks. And I so many times had women ask me when I wasn't pregnant if I was pregnant. And that was just almost like this, like, no, I'm not pregnant. Like this horrible thing. Like I had a C-section 13 years ago, and just always I've had that little, like, if you've had a C-section, you would know there's this little like scar, pretty big scar, not little. It's about 4 inches long, with a bump over it. And no matter how fit I get, like I am the most fit I've been in my entire life right now, honestly, at almost 40 years old, is that I just always am going to have this little pooch. And I've really just gone from that skinny mindset that I grew up, that story that I needed to be skinny, and story just like appeared out of nowhere. I was at the Foothills Fashion Mall when I was like a teenager, and I was always a very beautiful girl. Like I really was just this beautiful heart, beautiful smile, and just very unique looking. And freckles, like I think started becoming a thing, and women started like being okay with their freckles. And there was like a model agency like set up at a desk there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing to be a model. That'd be so fun. But there was this part of me that's like, oh no, you're not pretty enough. Like, no. And then I was like, there's this other part that was like, no, just go up there and talk to them. And I went up and talked to them and I thought, oh, like, what does it entail? How do you be a model? Blah, 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 all these things. And the guy was like, okay, yeah, you might be able to be a model. And then he looks down my body. He goes, you have to lose about 15 to 20 pounds in the next month. And I looked at him and I was like, what? And then once again, that rejection, that failure feeling washed over me like, oh gosh, I'm not good enough. And from that and lots of other things, it was like, I always had this like complex that I'm fat in my belly. It was like this weird belly fat. I never felt like I was fat anywhere else but my belly. And I noticed that now that was something that just kind of followed me. And then I remember finally it was like years and years down the road. Like this is probably maybe like 5 years ago. I was in my house when I lived across the street from my sisters. And I think I had just taken my yoga teacher training, or I was currently in my yoga teacher training. And if you've seen like those yoga jumpsuits, the ones that have like the really cozy pants that they kind of cinch at your ankles, and then the really big and boxy, and then the seam, the crotch like hangs down by your knees, and then you can pull it like at your waist. And so that day I remember I had pulled that whole suit like up over my boobs, so it was kind of like a little jumper, and it looked really cute, and I was feeling really good. And Junie's friend came over for a play date, and her mom was just like so sweet. And I think I later found out that her mom was actually blind in one eye. And she was just such this like kind light. And both of our daughters went to this Waldorf school. And we were just joking around about kids. And when she was dropping her daughter off. And then she said something like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant again, aren't you? And then she touched my belly. And I just looked at her and I said, oh, no, actually I'm not. And I didn't let it bother me. I was like, no, I'm not. I feel good about my body. And if that was years before, I would have been so thwarted and then started crying afterwards, because that totally happened like at a park a few years, like maybe even a year before. And it's like, no, like I am a mom and I work hard on my body. Like I don't work like so hard. I'm not like beating myself up, but I practice yoga and I am mindful about my food. And mostly I love my body and I accept my body the way that it is. And I don't let those old stories control me anymore. Like I'm rewriting them. I have rewritten them. I've rewritten those old stories that say that my body is the wrong size, because my body is the right size. My body is the right size. I was born a big boned girl, tall girl, huge. Like now I get it. It's like these Viking ancestral women, like the women in my family, we are big, strong, healthy women. And as a little girl, I equated that as like I was a freak, I was an Amazon, and I was the Bigfoot. And then I got that confirmed to me when I would get bullied and teased about my size, but I was very shy at the same time. And it's funny, I think back, I'm like, what if in one moment I was like, leave me alone, back off my business, if I like had the courage that I have today to stand up for myself, to stand up for my body. But that wasn't my journey, because I had to experience all of it. I think as a kid, we all experience bullying. And again, it is this quote in my bathroom that says, the pain you experience today is the strength you feel tomorrow, because everything has been here for a reason. And sometimes we don't know the reason. And sometimes it's really hard when it's really hard. Like, this isn't here for a reason. Like, this is not here to benefit me. Like, no. I remember one of my soul sisters was going through a really rough time, and she's like, it's getting really hard to hear that, like that this is happening for a reason. Like this is happening for me, not to me. I will say it again. Life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. And when you can change your perspective, your mindset on that life is here for you, all of these experiences, even the crappy and the gross ones. Like I think of this radical transformation in my relationship with my husband from 2 weeks ago to, it took one night. It wasn't just one night. It was me just opening and expanding myself through taking this training and shift things within me, because I tried so many years to always try to change my husband. It was like, oh, it's him, it's not me. If he just changed this about himself, if he changed that about himself, then our relationship would be perfect, or it would be the quote unquote perfect marriage. But what I realized is that I can only change myself. It's only me that I can work on. And when we work on us, my soul sisters, we inevitably transform. It's like that vibration goes out and it changes the frequency in which we reside in, and it changes the people around us, whether or not they want to, whether or not they're resisting it. Because my husband sometimes resists it. And then when I told him about this training and that it was 4 days and I was going to need him to watch the kids and I'm going to go to my sister's, and he was like, yeah, you need to do that. Like, that's good for you. And it's so interesting because I remember doing hair thinking I couldn't do anything. I couldn't ever take time away from the kids. And my story was Rex always goes and does what he wants to, and I'm stuck with the kids. And then I decided it was like 6 years ago, I started doing women's circles every month. Every month for the past 6 years, I've done a women's circle. Maybe it's been 5 years, about 5 years. But seriously, every month. I mean, there's been months where they've gotten canceled, but it's been a very consistent thing in my life. And the very first few times I went, there was so much resistance. And I remember that Rex would like text me and call me. And I just decided, no, I'm doing this for myself. Like, I am doing this because I need this. And I experienced a lot of guilt and like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad mom for like, it probably took me about 6 months. But then after a year, it was just like a habit, the power of consistency of when you just do things. And now I just do it. And I actually just did my women's circle, and it was 4 hours, and it just is. And it's just a thing that it's like, oh, mom's going to her women's circle, and everyone knows. And sometimes the kids call me. They did call me. I'm pretty sure that the kids called me probably about 18 times, but I just put my phone on silence because I was working on me, because it's important to take time. And I know as a mom, that mom guilt comes, but when we have partners who love us, they will understand that you need to do things for you just as they need to do things for them. Like, I remember Rex went hunting. Like, he would go hunting or fishing when the kids were really young. And I would get mad at him because I realized the story I was telling myself was that he was abandoning me. He was abandoning me. He was leaving me all alone with the kids, and that I had to do it alone. No, he wasn't. He was going to do things that filled him up, that he loved. And then I finally got to a point many, many moons later that I realized, oh my gosh, he's taking time for himself. I need to take time for myself, because especially if you're a stay-at-home mom, like, it's constant, it's never stopping, and we have to take time to create space for ourselves, right? To change our physiology, to uplift and to connect us. And even I remember I've taken a few just women's trips that were without my sisters, that I would never think in a million years I would do anything without my sisters. And those were scary too. And I had so much resistance. And even this past year, I took a trip with my soul sister, and we went for 2 nights, and it was so wonderful. And it was so nice to just be with just her. And like, between us, we have like 5, 6, 7, 8 kids and 6 dogs. And it's always kind of mass chaos. And we'd been talking about it for years, and we finally just did it. We finally just went, and then Rex was so supportive. And then he got to schedule a boys trip, and he's going on like a boys trip actually in like 2 weeks. He's going skiing with his friends, and there's no like resentment or guilting or shaming each other, because we know that we need to do things together, which we do. But it's also important for us to do things with our tribe, with our people, the people that fill us up, the people that we love, because it freaking matters. It matters. Ugh, I love you so much, my soul sisters. And our self-care practice, my beautiful soul sisters, is changing our relationship, changing your relationship, or say it to yourself, put your hand on your heart. When it comes to rejection and failure and squiggling in fear, because fear is rejection and failure, like blown up. Like, that's where fear comes from. Fear creates all these yucky things. And so what is it that you can do to change that relationship? Well, you can tap in, maybe do a little journaling, and notice, what is your story behind? What is your programming behind rejection? Because you think of like the Harry Potter authors, J.R. I can't think correctly right now, but the author of Harry Potter, and all of the rejections, like all of the great authors were rejected so many times. They didn't just get the book deal the first time, but because they persevered, because they probably were like, no, I believe in my story. I believe in my story more than you do, you're wrong. Like, you're not, maybe you're wrong, Maybe you're just not right for me. Maybe it's not that you're wrong, but you're just not right for me. And that changing that mantra, that inner dialogue when it comes to either being rejected or failing, and knowing that maybe you could write this down, that I wrote this down. It's really powerful that rejection is the universe's way of keeping me on my authentic path. Rejection is the universe's way of keeping me on my authentic path. Or maybe it's that whatever feels good or resonates with you at a soul level, at this heart level, that rejection is the universe's way of protecting me. What if it's just its way of protecting you? What if failure, what does it mean? What does failure mean to you now? That instead of feeling like thwarted and I'm not good enough, what was your old story? I'm not worthy. I'm not smart enough to do this. What if it's this failure is getting me one step closer? And this was a beautiful mantra, an affirmation or incantation that Jamie shared with us, is that I'm one of the brave women who's putting myself out there and who's having a voice for other women, because not all women feel safe into voicing the way that they're feeling. That it takes courage to do the things that you're doing. It takes courage to say the things that you're doing. And even when it comes to your spouse or your relationship with your parents or even your kids, that it takes courage to do the brave things that you're doing, and that I'm one of the brave ones putting myself out there. So every time I fail, it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means that I'm one of the brave ones, and I keep striving on because I know that the universe is leading me on my divine path. And that if my path detoured and I did maybe get that boyfriend or marry that guy or get that book deal or get that job, that my life would be on a whole different trajectory, that it would not have been in the best and highest good of me. Rewrite that narrative, write that down, and then every time that comes up, have that with you. Write it on a Post-it, put it in your wallet, put it on your mirror. I know when I first started doing this, I was like mortified for my husband to see all those stuff. I was writing all over my mirrors and my sticky notes. And then after a while, I've been married to him for 19 years, together for 20. I'm just at a point where I love him and he loves me and he accepts me the way I am. So whether you're there or not, you need to write these things down, because it's one thing to just think of it and listen to me here, but to actually follow through and do it. So hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable by sharing this with one person. Share this with one person. That person that you have that vulnerable, raw, authentic relationship with, not like a surface person who's like your neighbor that you're like, hi, how are the kids and the dogs? Great to see you. Goodbye. Call or text someone and say, hey, I just heard this like amazing thing about changing the relationship with failure and rejection. And I noticed that this was my story. I feel like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, but I'm choosing to know that rejection is the universe's way of protecting me. I'm choosing to know that I'm one of the brave people. And even if you're feeling like you don't have anyone to send it to, send that to me at awakenyoushelleybond@gmail.com. Please send that to me. I would love that. awakenyoushelleybond@gmail.com. And I could share it either on the air, on here. I will share it with your real name, or I could give you an alias if that sounds good for you, because you have to share it. Because think of like when anything happens in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, what do you immediately do? You want to share it, right? You want to share, you want to grow it, you want to connect it. And so this is how to make that transformational, actual positive change. Oops, sorry, vibration. I'm feeling very gestury, is that we have to actually put it into motion. So create that energy, raise your energy, shift your physiology, wiggle around, make a move that feels good for you. Because if you're in a high vibration, a high feeling state, you're going to feel ready to go. You're going to feel like you can do it versus like, oh my gosh, this is scary. I can't share that. I remember those days. Like, I remember this was awesome. I gave my sisters each 2 copies of my book for like the holidays. And my sister gave this older woman, not super older, but like maybe she's 50s, maybe 60s. So I think she's maybe in her 60s. She has kids that are like our age. So she's most likely like a parent age to us. And she said, oh my gosh, your sister's book. It's like I'm reading her journal. It's like she's sharing her diary. And I just kind of giggled and I thought, yeah, it really is. It's really my authentic truth and in my authentic story. And thank you. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, she doesn't like it, I'm at this space where I think, Thank you. I have so much gratitude for you noticing me. Thank you for seeing me. Oh, I love you, my beautiful soul sisters. Keep yourself accountable. Email me, awakenoushelleybond@gmail.com, and tell me what is your old story with fear, with rejection, with failure. Sometimes it sounds really big to start with fear, so start with rejection and failure. Tell me your old story and your new story. Or if you are so brave like you are and amazing, you send it to someone that you love, someone that you trust, or even if you're feeling like super courageous, you can send it to me in a DM and I will post it on my social media and share it. If you're feeling like you can't, I will share it on my social media and I will anonymous you if that's how you feel. Because I know when I first started writing, I was like, I can't share these things, but just be you, be real. Tell me your authentic truth. Please push yourself to grow, because growth comes in those most uncomfortable moments. Those breakthrough healing moments are when we push ourselves to do scary things. So do scary things, do hard things by actually doing them. I love you so much. And please check out my yoga courses, Awaken You Yoga Healing Center with Shelly. It's not with Shelly anymore. It's just Awaken You Yoga Healing Center. I've had a few different names. I'm so excited about this journey and growing and sharing and just living our best lives. I love you. Know that you are worthy, that you are capable of rewriting your story, rewriting your narrative, rewriting the way that you're thinking, feeling, interacting with your emotional state about rejection and failure and fear, because these are things of the universe, things of life, and life is testing us. And we can do this. We can do hard things. I love you. I'm so grateful for this space. I will be back here hanging out with you next week. Goodbye, my beautiful soul sisters.